us who know safety.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. I ended up doing a live stream today because I'm trying to make sure. Can you see me? Why does it seem to say that hold on one second. Yeah, right? Okay, my preview, there I am. Okay, my preview didn't start the picture. YouTube. All right, hey everybody. Thank you, Jane. Thank you for joining. Elpidio and Emilio, thank you for your gifted memberships. And Rodolfo Cosmics, happy birthday. Hey, Riley. Okay, so sorry about that. Sorry about that glitch. I'm glad you like my shirt, Matthew. I'm wearing this to record my Snow White spoiler review, which will have to go up later today. I've had a really crazy week. I've been up until 3:30 every night working. I got to figure out a way to get a better sleep schedule and still make sure I cover everything on time. Thank you, Devon. So we have 3 fabulous stories to discuss today. I wasn't going to do a live today, but there was too much news. Hey, Zeke. Thanks for gifting a membership. There was just too much news. I thought we had to discuss it. These are great stories. And so that's another reason that the spoiler review for Snow White will go up either late tonight or early tomorrow. Okay, so as always, please keep your questions and comments to the story at hand. At the end of each section, I will answer your questions and comments about that story. And then at the very end of the live stream, I'll do an Ask Me Anything about anything that you want as usual. And as Obed said, yes, please. No spoilers for Severance because a lot of people probably haven't watched it yet. Thank you, Elpidio. Thank you very much. I don't drink coffee, so I just have to make it work. Okay. So these are great stories. I love it. At least Hollywood is, kind of starting to percolate. All right, so story number 1. Hold on. Boop. All right, Snow White Thursday night box office. Disney might actually pull this off. What? All right, so everybody was hoping for Snow White to be out of the gate. Not happened yet. So Thursday night box office, it pulled in $3.5 million last night. That's not bad. We're going to go over all these comments, all right? That's right, Chico. It was the kids. And hey, everybody's money is the same. So it turns out, so this is $3.5 million with showtime starting yesterday as early as 2 p.m. That's pretty much a full day, particularly because no one's really going to go during, although it is spring break. So spring break is, kids are not in school to some degree. And that's exactly why Disney released the film at this time. So they said, of the kids in attendance, we don't have an exact breakdown. I'm glad, Jamie, your daughter liked my review. That makes me very happy. Of the kids in attendance, it was 84% girls under 12. That is very impressive. They had a lot of kids at the premiere dressed up as Snow White, and it seemed a lot like the studio put them in Snow White outfits and said, go stand out there. And also Gal Gadot was talking, or she was talking to some kids at Disneyland, and we were all like, that seems very manufactured, but it seems maybe little kids like it. And even as I said in my review that went up last night, I feel it's actually a really nice movie for little girls. So it makes me very happy that little girls are going to see it. I think that the messaging for little girls is perfect. So that's amazing. Now, to some degree, you might be looking at a Barbie Jr. that no matter how much people might hate it, little girls aren't on. Actually, I think probably girls under 12 might be on social media these days. I see really little kids on iPads all the time at restaurants. So, but I don't know if they're on social media, and they don't care. So I think that might be a really interesting, workaround for Disney. However, it's not all good news. So one other problem, though, is that of the people they're polling right away. The cinema score won't come out until late tonight, early tomorrow morning. I think cinema score will rush to get it out, so it'll probably go up later tonight. However, Post-Track, which does a lot of exit polling as well, has already been asking people, and it's only gotten 3 stars from people who walked out of the theater, and only 39% definite recommend, meaning that people are going, but they're not enjoying it, which doesn't bode well for the cinema score. It's not like people are going and being like, those reviews, that toxicity, it was all wrong. They're like, nah, it was not good, but my kid liked it maybe, as some of you are saying. And then another issue is that it has a 39% interest in terms of, they've been polling people are like, do you plan to see Snow White? And the interest has been low. So the movie could be severely front-loaded. You might have a lot of kids and families going right on the opening weekend, but then they're not going to go again, and people aren't going to keep going. So they're not out of the woods just yet. We're going to talk about Mufasa in a moment. So let's compare it to some other films. Now this is, as you can see, over 1 million more than Maleficent pulled in for the sequel. That pulled in just 2.3 on Thursday night and opened with 36.9. Dumbo also did 2.6, but look how Dumbo blew up. It opened at 46. Although, of course, we all know that Dumbo went on to not make really any money because there ain't been no Dumbo 2. So I think that's an issue. I think just because a movie opens really strong, even opening weekend doesn't mean it's going to leg out. And then the trades were really fast. They were really quick to push this comparison. It makes me wonder if perhaps Disney was like, hey, mention Kung Fu Panda 4. Disney, I think, is very much massaging. We're going to talk about that. But, I see a lot of behind the scenes tinkering, I think you can see, of trying to give this movie the best chance possible. And that's the job of the publicity department. You can't get upset about that. But they're pulling out all the stops. So they're like, mention Kung Fu Panda 4. Mention Kung Fu Panda 4, even though it's an animated movie from a different studio. So Kung Fu Panda 4 opened with 3.8, just a scooch more, and went up on to do 57.8. Nacho points out that Mufasa did 3.3, which is basically the same as 3.5 on Thursday night. And as you can see here, let's talk about Mufasa. Mufasa only went to open with 35. All right? So there's Mufasa. Let me make it a little bigger so you can read it. I'm still here. I'm right here. All right, so as you can see, let me get my arrow here. Mufasa only went on to do 35 million opening. However, it's a dream come true. It's a Disney miracle. It had a tremendous legs. It went on to do 252 domestic and 464 overseas, reaching 700 million. That's like over 100 million more than The Little Mermaid made. I gotta tell you, look at this little comment I have right here. January, February, my friends, nothing was out. Mufasa had a really long, uninterrupted period where it was the only game in town. Well, it was fighting it out with Sonic, basically. And a lot of people went for the holidays. Spring break is only 2 weeks, my friend. And then, of course, Minecraft is about to come out. And although I don't know I don't know how many little girls are into Minecraft, I believe everyone plays the Minecraft. So, we'll see how much of a dent or an issue that might be. And then, of course, you have, How to Train Your Dragon is about, it's about 2 months out for How to Train Your Dragon. Snow White will already be on digital by then. Or no, Disney's doing the 60 days. Snow White will be about there on digital. Spring break is usually only about a week I think spring break's not very long, but everybody has different spring breaks, which is the difference. So I don't know about, I gotta tell you, I still don't know if Mufasa's gonna do Snow White numbers. And that's right, Marduk. Thanks for pointing out that Mufasa had a fabulous cinema score. So we really gotta see what the cinema score is. I gotta tell you, if Snow White can open with even a 4 in front of it at this point, and maybe a B+ or higher cinema score, I think Disney's gonna feel pretty good about that. But as I said, they're really working hard here to kind of massage the narrative and give their movie the best chance possible to succeed. For instance, let's take a look at Rotten Tomatoes. Whew! That critic score did indeed go down instead of up. It's at 46% right now, and I don't see it getting out of the 40s. I don't think it's going to fall out of the 40s either, but this is where it lives. This is its home now, in the 40th percentile. However, where's the audience score? Very interesting. Paul, I think the audience score will definitely be higher than 46, but, Disney would like an audience score in the 80s, at least. I mean, anything below an 80, people are going to be like, yeah, it's probably a bit of a stinker. So where is it? It should be up by now. I can understand there not being an audience score as of last night, but the audience score should be tabulated. Now, it only has around 100 verified reviews. However, Opus has only 100 plus verified reviews, and it was able to get an audience score. So I think that they're holding it just a little bit, but they can't hold it forever. I mean, because, the site, Rotten Tomatoes, has to maintain its integrity. So I think certainly by this afternoon, this evening, you're going to have an audience score, and that's just nothing that can be done about it. I mean, there's no way it won't have one by Saturday. But yeah, I'm very curious to see what the audience score is. Although Cinema Score, of course, is the most important. And Nico, there might be haters on the Rotten Tomatoes thing, but that's why they have verified ratings. That's the best that Rotten Tomatoes can do, but, they have tried to combat that. So, but the Cinema Score is much harder to game. So Cinema Score is really going to be what we're looking for. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I do think, though, that with Disney live-action remakes, they're not going to stop making them. They're not going to stop making them. I think they're doing good enough business. And I think that, it's like gambling. Disney's got that itch. They got that itch, man. They do well enough times that it's always worth a roll of the dice. It keeps the IP going. Just like, I didn't do Coco 2 as one of the stories today, but Coco, Pixar's going to turn into a sequel factory because Inside Out 2 did so well. I loved Inside Out 2. If they're all the quality of Inside Out 2, it won't bother me too much. And then as Juan pointed out in Ben 10, Lilo and Stitch is going to do incredibly well, I predict. They just released a clip the other day, and it looked fantastic. That's a summer movie. It's going to make so much money probably. It's going to be just absolutely insane. So Disney's, Disney keeps surviving, which is interesting to me. You're like, oh, this is going to be it. Disney's going to learn their lesson. And they're like, ha ha, and they laugh all the way to the bank. Although we'll see how Epic Universe, if that's at all a game changer at all. So, but it's crazy. It's very interesting. And then, of course, be sure to tune into Movie Math on Sunday, where we're going to have the actual numbers and be able to really dive into what happened. This is all conjecture. I saw some of you saying Rachel Zegler fans ran up first day of, the first day of release. But still, Saturday's a big movie-going day for matinees. A lot of people might go on Saturday and Sunday. People might go today for matinees because it's spring break. So we just have to wait and see. But this is surprisingly solid. I wouldn't call it a strong opening, but it's a surprisingly solid opening for the film. So, again, you're like, you're doing it. It's amazing. Okay. All right. So any questions? Any questions or comments about this story before we go on to the next one? Hold on. Alexander says, I just hope this movie doesn't hurt Rachel Zegler's career. Well, we have to see what the numbers are. I think she's going to take a lot of heat for it, for sure. But I don't know. Like, is she saving the day with these girls under 84? 84%, girls under 84% girls under 12. I think that's very much probably to her credit. Good for you, Zeke. All right. And then JS also is correct. What will the drop be the second weekend? Although there ain't no movies coming out the next weekend. Hollywood gave Disney a freebie. There's no competition until the week afterwards with Minecraft. Minecraft feels they have the tail end of spring break, and Snow White feels that they have, I guess, the beginning. Alex says, is Gal Gadot's career over? Well, I can't call anybody's career just yet. You know, I think it's not looking good for either of them. But I don't think, I guess as of this moment, I don't see either of them going away, but I see them getting much different opportunities. I think that a big studio would be reluctant probably to hire either one of them for a major, like, 4-quadrant film. But if you have like for instance, Hunger Games, like a franchise like Hunger Games would be like, come over here, Rachel Zegler. You know, like I think that would still work. And I think that Gal Gadot, you know, she might have to produce something herself, but I think she maybe could still get some work. Nico says, I feel like Twitter is leaking out into the real world a bit. CNN and Deadline are reporting things that, you know, discussing film and film updates used to. Well, everybody loves those sweet, sweet, sweet clicks. And so I think, there are some Twitter accounts that just basically paraphrase the stories of the news outlets. And so I think that the news outlets are like, well, why don't we just do that? So I think maybe that's a little bit what you're seeing there. Oh, Pidio, I hope you have a good time going to see the movie. I think it's a better matinee than it is an evening film. Billy Malloy says, I think there's no competition this weekend, so default win for them. But people could just not go to the movies. You know, nobody went to see at the movies last weekend with Novocaine out and Black Bag. Yeah, Zeke, I'm sure that Disney is going to move ahead with other, Tangled already has a director, the guy who did the Robbie Williams biography and The Greatest Showman. Although Snow White borrows so heavily from Tangled, I'd be like, you already just made Tangled. I think it would be weird to do that again. Oh, Jamie, I hope you and your daughter have a great time. Jake says, do you think the biggest downfall is the dwarfs or the actress drama? That's a great question. I think it's both of them. I think the actress drama for both actresses is the big problem for the film outside of the movie. And then within the film itself, I think that not only the CGI dwarves, but clearly adding them in reshoots creates creative problems for the film itself. Hey, Keneal. Nacho says, what about Sabrina Carpenter for Tangled? That's the rumor. I think she'd be an interesting choice. Let's see here. Chico says, would you advise Rachel Zegler to keep doing movie musicals or move on to something else? Oh, she's got to sing. I think that her strongest asset is her singing ability. So I would strongly recommend that she continue to do musicals. And she's going to London to do, she's going to London to do Evita. And I guarantee you that she's hoping she can get a movie off of Evita and do a movie version of it. I mean, she seems too young to play Evita, in my opinion, Evita Peron. But let's see how well it's received. If they can do some kind of crazy new gen reimagining of it, and it's a big hit on the West End, and then it comes to Broadway, and everyone's like, it's the best thing I've ever seen. Sure, they're going to make a movie of it. I wouldn't be surprised if Rachel Zegler is searching for her Wicked. And I think that Evita is not a bad choice, actually, for her. Obed says, you're going to see Snow White today. Any snack recommendations? Well, I didn't get it, but I slightly regretted it. Well, I got Raisinets, or AMC chocolate-covered raisins, which is what they have, which are good. But I got to tell you, I'd also maybe consider M&Ms. Plain or peanut, your choice. But they're multicolored like the gems. You could also do gummies. They're a little healthier and also are multicolored like the gems of the movie. Oh, Benji, rock candy is pretty funny, but probably a real mess in the theater. Davey says you should smuggle in an apple for Snow White. No, you'd make so much noise. You'd make so much noise in the theater biting the apple. I always think every time somebody bites an apple, I always think of how awkward it is to bite an apple. Your lips go all over it. You hurt your teeth. I'm like, it's one of the hardest things to eat. Hey, Luke. Let's see here. Zeke, I agree. I don't think that any of Sabrina Carpenter's actions are going to hurt her Disney chances. I mean, look what Florence Pugh does. And Florence Pugh, of course, is, in the new Marvel movie. Okay, I think we're ready for the next story. All right. Morph, we'll talk about that on Friday. Oh, we see. That's so generous of you. Thank you so much. Look at you making it rain. Well, I don't know if we don't know if it's gonna flop just yet. I mean, let's wait and see. I mean, it could be another Mufasa. I think that's unlikely, but again, we got to see what that cinema score is. You know, a movie that's on the edge like this will live or die by a cinema score. I knew that Captain America was not going to do well when I saw the cinema score. I wasn't sure until then, and I was like, that's it. That's the end of it. So that cinema score is going to be really crucial, and that will come out later this evening. It could be very late, like around 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but it will be. That's really crucial. Okay, story number 2. Hold on. Boop. Okay, no Severance spoilers. Don't do it. Don't do it. If you haven't watched Severance yet, be really careful because I can't control anybody who might do something at the last minute. So you might want to maybe cover up the chat if you haven't watched it yet. Just be really, really careful. Okay, so Zeke, I appreciate your generosity, but you can't derail the conversation even with a super chat. I'm very sorry. Just be careful about your timing. Okay. All right. So the season 2 finale dropped last night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let me get my arrow. It did. We don't know exactly how well it did. I mean, it has been doing well in the Nielsen rating. So let's talk about that. But it trended number 1 on Twitter. Although just ask Disney Plus, just because your show trends really high on Twitter doesn't necessarily mean that it's doing well in the ratings. But Severance has been doing well in the Nielsen ratings. It hasn't been able to get under the overall chart, but it's done a nice job on the originals chart. It dropped a little bit after its debut. It started out like it's number 4. It's around 5 or 6 right now. I think some people probably ended up waiting to binge it. So I think that when Nielsen catches up to this window of time, I think there's a very good chance that Severance will jump onto the overall chart. So Severance is definitely doing very well for Apple TV ratings-wise, and they have said that it is the most watched show, surpassing Ted Lasso, that they've ever had. You guys want a poll? All right, hold on. Do you watch Severance? So we'll do yes when it drops. Yes, week of. Then waiting to binge. And then no. By the way, anyone who's watching can vote in a poll. You don't have to be a member to vote in a poll. All right, so season 3. They announced that late last night or this morning. It was done very cutely. Ben Stiller said, hey, the folks want a season 3, Tim Cook. Do you think we can get it? Tim Cook, of course, being the head of Apple. And Tim Cook said, as is any, Tim C. tweeted with a little announcement video that they will be doing a season 3. And Ben Stiller has sworn that it won't take another 3 years to get the next season. And they said the scripts are now kind of locked, but I think you're still looking at 2 years. But that's fine. They're going to take a little break and go win a bunch of awards probably at the next awards cycle. I think right now they probably are the show to beat, but they're very early on in the cycle. It's always best to be a little bit closer to when the awards take place. But coulda, woulda, shoulda. This is the hand that they've been dealt. But season 3 is very, very exciting. So Apple TV now has season 3, and they also have season 4 of Ted Lasso coming. So Apple TV, despite the headline we're about to discuss, ain't going nowhere. But the first thing I want to talk about is Ben Stiller. It is wonderful to see Ben Stiller's resurgence and having not just make a comeback, but kind of have a new career. He's totally changed his image. He's always been a writer-director, but primarily for himself. He really drove his own career there at the beginning and made some wonderful movies that everybody's a really big fan of, from his first directorial debut, Reality Bites. to the Zoolander movies, to Tropic Thunder. I mean, he started to lose his way a little bit with Walter Mitty, which he also directed. However, I think you can see clear influences from Walter Mitty on Severance. So he's really, I think, incredibly grown as a filmmaker. I mean, it's just really neat. That's right, the Cable Guy, Mika. And I see, Robert, you mentioned that as well. But to see Ben Stiller kind of reinvent himself later on in his career as an artiste is just really, really exciting. And I also have to commend him for not cameoing on Severance. I think that would break the spell of the show. I think he gets a lot of other comedians in there in funny roles, like Sandra Bernhard. And I really admire that. And I'm glad that Ben Stiller, he's a very big star. Everybody knows who Ben Stiller is. I hope he's making Meet the Parents 4, so he's fine. He's still working. And I think that it's just really and that's interesting. That might slow down Severance season 3 a little bit, interestingly. I just thought of that now. Let's see here. Hold on. All right. 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. All right. So, I'm just very excited for Ben Stiller, and I think he deserves this. I think if you watched any of the episodes that he's directed this season, particularly last night's season finale, he has become one of the best directors, I think, working today. And I'm like, Ben, when are you making a new movie? I like this new era of his career where he's behind the camera. And I think it's really, that's right. Mika, Jordan Peele is a phenomenal comparison. Phenomenal comparison. So I'm just very happy. I think if there are any actors out there who were struggling, I would probably say to them, if I were their agent or a friend of theirs, I'd say, why don't you try and pull a Ben Stiller? Why don't you go behind the camera and see what you can do there? Go find something that's very different for yourself. And, and also, by the way, Adam Scott also has a comedic background. And yet here he is with a really, really strong. They often say comedians can turn in the best dramatic performances. Jim Carrey and Robin Williams were wonderful dramatic actors. And I think that Severance is a really beautiful example of that. And Jordan Peele, too, is another great example of that. All right, so let's talk about Apple TV. Whew, they're losing a lot of money. Woohoo! They're like Lumen. They're like Lumen over there. It was reported that they are losing over $1 billion per year on their streaming service. But they have 45 million subscribers, but it ain't enough. They charge $9.99 a month for Apple TV. That's one of the cheaper streaming services, actually. And that's 45 million people paying $10 a month. That's a lot of money. That's like, what is that, like $4 billion a month? How much are they spending on this content? Oh my God. But I gotta tell you, I think it's worth every penny. They have really, really good content. And that's true. Oh, 450 million. Thank you. So that's 450 million. But that's $450 million a month. So that's a couple billion. It's still, in like 3 months, you've got over $1 billion. So that's a tremendous amount of money coming in. But, there are also employees who work at Apple TV. They have to pay those people. And obviously, they're pouring tons of money into these projects, these productions. And, obviously, they're making, that's right, they make tons of money off of their products, their phones and their computers, etc. So let's talk a little bit about, let's close the poll on Severance. All right, hold on. All right, do you watch Severance? 50% of you don't watch the show. Oh, noes! You should watch it. It's really good, especially now that you can binge it. I highly recommend that you watch Severance. It is probably one of the greatest shows of all time. And stick with it. Once you get to that season 1 finale, you'll be like, well, what was I doing with my life before now? 21% of you are waiting to binge. Enjoy your weekend. You're going to have a great time. 19% of you watch it the night that it drops, and 7% of you watch it a week of. So that's crazy. So only about 30% of you have been watching it while it's airing. So that's pretty amazing. They're like, poopers. All right. So let's talk about why Apple TV maybe isn't doing better. Now, when I I think this is interesting. Well, I tweeted about this yesterday. I retweeted this story and I said, what a shame, considering the quality of the content is so good. All right, so there's lack of advertising. They don't advertise their stuff, but yet neither does Netflix really. Although I think that Apple TV, with the assistance of shows like Severance, is starting to make a lot of progress in the social media space. I think fans are starting to pay attention to what Apple TV puts on, and so that's going to benefit them going forward. I think they're also very reliant on the fact that if you buy an Apple product, you get 3 months of the service for free. I wonder if people know that. I mean, you still have to download the app and activate it, but I think that is probably something else that, they feel is something that, they're trick up their sleeve. And then also they recently became available through the Prime Video interface, although you got to still pay the full amount. There's no discount if you go through Prime Video. It's not an add-on. I mean, it's an add-on, but it's a full add-on. But you don't have to download another app. You don't have to go into another interface. You can just add on to Prime Video and enjoy them through that app. Now, some of you pointed out, and I thought this was really interesting, a lack of a library. Apple TV has no backlog. They don't have, studios have tons of films that they made for almost 100 years, most of them. Stuff that Netflix acquires stuff and has produced tons of content at this point. Whereas Apple TV really only has their own originals, and there's not a lot of them, and they're not very well publicized. So I think a lot of you said it just wasn't worth the money to get the service because there wasn't a library of content. I would counter the fact that they've produced so many good shows at this point that there is enough of a library. Don't go and look at old stuff. Don't feel like it has to be something that you've heard of before. Try one of these shows that that are very popular. Start working through them, and I think you'll find that it's a very good $10 a month, in my opinion. Hey, Kickna, thank you for coming back there as a member. Now, Apple TV ain't exactly suffering. They've got Ted Lasso, they have Severance, both shows are returning. And as some of you pointed out, don't cry for Apple. They're still the first streaming service to win Best Picture, and that's with Coda. They won with Coda. So they're doing pretty good. And that's right, Poke, they've also got Snoopy over there. So they got a lot of stuff. They have a lot of stuff. And also they have some wonderful shows coming up. So don't let go of that Apple membership just yet. So the studio. Oh, wow. The studio is such a good show. I filmed my review. I haven't had a chance to edit it because I told you my week was so crazy. This review will be going up, I promise you, before Wednesday when the show drops. This show starts Wednesday. This, I think, is one of the greatest shows ever produced. Especially, it's probably the greatest project I've ever seen about Hollywood. It's as good as The Offer, which I kept telling you about. And it's so accurate. This show is so incredible. It drops 2 episodes on Wednesday. Two half-hour episodes on Wednesday before going to become a weekly. I can't say enough good things about the studio. It is probably, I just love it so much. If you're interested in Hollywood or the business of Hollywood, this is the show that you need to watch. If you want to know what it's like in Hollywood today, this is the show you need to watch. It is absolutely brilliant. Because I haven't dropped my review just yet, I'll give you one little hint. Of the shows that drop, the second episode is about a director trying to get a one take. It's called The Oneer. And they want a really complicated long take. Long takes are all the rage these days, like with adolescents. So when you watch it, and you won't realize it at first, the episode is a oneer. I feel bad that adolescents maybe stole their thunder a little bit, but the entire episode 2 of the studio is a one take. And it's a very frenetic, comedic one take. And the fact that they did that and choreographed it is absolutely incredible. So the meta aspects of the studio are one of the coolest things about the show. So when you're watching it, always think about that as well. Be like, don't just think about what the story they're telling you. Think about the directorial and the creative choices that they've made. I mean, it's just really neat. You're in for a real treat. Episode 1 is the Martin Scorsese episode. Episode 2 is the one-take episode. It's an incredible 1-2 punch. You should be watching the studio on Wednesday night. Then, not quite as good, but an incredible show that's also starting on April 11th is Your Friends and Neighbors with John Hamm. I've only seen the first 6 episodes of this show. They give you the screeners super early at Apple. I just got screeners for a show in June with Alexander Skarsgård. I can't wait to try it. It's like a comedy about him playing like a death robot. I can't wait. But they gave me this, and I was like, I have nothing to watch. What am I going to watch? So I saw that I just got this, and I watched the first 6, and I was like, this show's fantastic. Excellent, excellent show as well. This is the all-timer, but this is really good. Strong recommend on both these shows. So if you hold on to your Apple TV subscription, I think you're gonna be pleased with these 2 shows that you can watch. And I think that's very important for Apple TV, to keep people from giving up their subscription, to have multiple shows going. Okay. Then, next up, part of me wonders, let me keep these up actually. Part of me wonders, is Apple TV becoming the new HBO? You know, HBO, I think, is struggling a little bit with some of their content. I think they've gone very genre-y. Zazzy's pushing franchise shows on them, like The Penguin, and also, what else? Dune Prophecy. Nico, what would I poll on this? What do you guys want to poll for? Polly poll. But of what? I'm not quite sure what the question would be. So I think that that's a little bit of a thing now. And I believe someone's pointed out here that a lot of people went from, some of the creative people who worked at HBO has gone over to Apple TV. So I thought about that, and I was like, so what is it? All right, now here's the thing, okay? Oh, Ninja Twink, I love that name, says, what about favorite streaming service? That's a good poll. Okay, what is your favorite? You're all going to say Netflix. Let's see here. Netflix, HBO Max. I can't even put everybody in there. We'll do Disney Plus. Because I can't even put Prime Video in there. Because I got to put Apple TV in the frickin' vote. Okay. Why do I only have 4 options for polls? Oh, I'm glad you liked Lessons in Chemistry, Devin. That was a very successful show. I never watched it. See, there's just so much content on the app. But then I thought about it, and I was like, well, what are the popular HBO shows right now? There's House of the Dragon, very popular. There's The Last of Us, which is coming out, starting also in April. And then there's White Lotus, very popular show. Oh, I mean, let's see. Episode 6 is the second half of the doozy of the season. I'm very curious to see how people react to it. But it is certainly a very, very successful show. But one of the things that this has going for it, that this doesn't so much, Your Friends and Neighbors kind of does, and a little bit of the studio, but the shock value. HBO really has leaned into shock value, no more so than White Lotus. I thought maybe White Lotus might have gone a little bit too far, but apparently White Lotus has not gone, is just right. And Mike White is perhaps potentially a modern genius when it comes to streaming shows. So I think that if I were an Apple TV executive, I'd be like, we're getting so close, but I think we need more shock. I think Severance has a shock value to it because it's so loopy. And I think that that's one of the things that has made the show blow up the way that it has. And I think that potentially that's something that Apple TV needs to focus on. You know, like, how do you make sure that you're the show people are talking about the evening that it drops? Daredevil has that, thank goodness, at least. Severance was, The Boys, Severance, Invincible, these shows had that recently. And of course, HBO dominates Sunday nights. So I think that I think you're starting to see a formula emerge for successful streaming shows. Netflix, of course, is losing out on this because they're binges. They're a binge service. And I think that's got to hurt them a little bit, that they're not able to be part of the conversation in the same way. Sometimes they are, like Squid Game, Stranger Things, Wednesday. Those will trend probably all weekend. But this weekly thing is really, really good. I think it's a nice thing. So I wonder if maybe on some shows, Netflix, they're kind of starting to experiment with live shows, like their John Mulaney show. with the John Mulaney show, doesn't quite work from what I've seen of it. But it's getting its legs back, so we'll see. All right, so any questions or comments about this story before we go to our James Bond story? Reese, I don't know. I'll look and see if I have government cheese screeners. I probably do. Let me look. I'll make an email to remind myself. All right. Let's see here. Zeke says, Grace, do you think Apple will buy Warner Brothers once it inevitably goes on sale? I don't know if Apple really wants to own Warner Brothers. Why would they? I don't think they need to. I think that they're I think that they're getting there. I think they're playing the long game, and they are primarily, remember, a tech company. And also they own Apple TV itself. It's theirs. They're also how you buy a lot of people buy their movies from anybody. So I think that Apple is fine, and I think they can afford to play the long game. It might take them another 5 to 10 years to turn a profit, but they're still going to be winning tons of awards, and I think it helps the image of their company. And I just don't think they want the headache of running a movie studio. It doesn't make any sense, I think, for their portfolio. I think Wall Street would be like, what are you doing? And it would hurt their stock. Mystic, I do think they should put their shows on the store. That's something we've discussed before. Thank you for reminding me of it. I do think they should put their shows on the store. I think once they wrap, just like all the streaming services, sorry. Oh, behind the scenes lipstick application. Okay, so anyway, I think they should. I think that's what all the streaming, well, Max does that. Warner Brothers, I think, does that. You should be able to purchase these things right after they're done. And I think it would be another way to get more money. And and then maybe you would, since you can't buy it until after the show wraps, maybe people would subscribe for the next season. I would definitely put Severance on there. I mean, look how much that helped Yellowstone. Not everybody had Paramount Plus, but then they would go and they would buy Yellowstone, and it really grew the show and the brand. That's right, Nico. It would be more expensive than a month's subscription. But I think some people mentally just don't want to add another streaming service. Thanks to Night Owl Hour. So let's see. Reese says the Emmys later this year will be very interesting. Think of the contenders will be Adolescence, The Last of Us, The Studio, Your Friends and Neighbors, and Severance. It's nuts. It's nuts. And it's going to be a weird cutoff point. I think it's going to be just like it was the last year. There's too much good TV to award all of it, which is, I think a problem that they've, isn't that funny? It's the opposite problem the movie space has. The movie space is like, well, we got to come up with 10. They're like, I don't care. You just got to think of 10 of these. But I think that's very funny. But I think that's great. I think that's really funny. But shows are doing much better. That's right, Mystic. Penguin will be competing at the Emmys because of that stupid timetable. And also the Squid Game, Stranger Things. That's the end of Stranger Things. Will Stranger Things get any Emmys? That might come out, though, after the Emmy window, though. Night Owl Hour, I can't discuss episode 5 until you see episode 6. Because episode 6 involves a flashback to episode 5, which gives you more context of what happens. So I can't discuss it until you've seen it. That's right, David Kyle. Hacks is, I'm very excited. Hacks is right around the corner. I love Hacks so much. All right, so what's your favorite streaming service right now? Yeah, Netflix, 37%. HBO Max is very close at 31%. Disney Plus at 17%, and Apple TV at 13%. It's Sophie's choice. You can't pick one of those. I mean, there's just too many good. There's just too many good shows. Wesley, I don't know about. I'm not sure when I'll get my hack screeners. I don't think I'm going to review the show. I don't know. Let me see how crazy busy it is. It's like there just is very little interest in hacks on YouTube. Mike's Poker Face is coming back to Peacock. It is. Poker Face is an incredible show. They have even bigger guest stars for season 2 with Natasha Lyonne. And that's actually coming out, I think, this summer. I'm very excited for it. Poker Face is a great show. It's female Columbo, but who has a problem with that? Columbo's great. All right, let's get to the next and third story of the day. All right, hold on. Story number 3. Boom, baby! I love this story. I love it. Just like everybody was sure that Disney had fallen flat on its face with Snow White, everybody thought that Amazon was going to ruin James Bond. But now it looks like they might be doing an excellent job. It's so good. It's so good. All right, so the story broke with Puck News late last night, now confirmed by the trades, that Amazon is circling David Heyman, which I had said was an easy choice. You're like, yeah, pick David Heyman. And then also Amy Pascal. We're going to go through them, but I'll just jump to this little thing right now. They want them both to do it. They want them both to do it. They're going to do it together. This is going to be a combo, like the Broccoli's were. Where is my broccoli photo? There. That's really, really incredible. They want to have another man and a woman, and they're putting together a team. And it's just such a good team. It's like you almost wonder why Disney didn't hire one of these two producers. I mean, we're like, who could shepherd Star Wars? Who could, shepherd other properties potentially? And we're like, oh, look, here they are. All right, so let's go through them. So David Heyman. Now, David Heyman, of course, is best known for producing the Harry Potter films. Let's pretend the Fantastic Beasts movies don't totally exist. So he's produced all the Harry Potter movies, and he's behind this new series. He is the Harry Potter producer, and he's done a very good job, I think, for the most part. He's certainly kept the brand alive. And it's not only very popular in theaters, but it's becoming a streaming show. It's at the Universal theme parks. It's a studio tour experience in London. They have tons of merchandise, including stores. They had a video game that's been successful. It's very successful. Then also, he's Mr. UK, because he's also behind Paddington and Wonka. So if you want someone to do justice to a British IP, it seems that David Heyman is your guy. So that's a really strong backing. He's like Thanos with his gauntlet. He's like, let me add Bond to this. I mean, this would just be an incredible group of films. And that's right. I see all of you pointing out that he also did Barbie. I don't know what he did on Barbie, but he was so crucial to Barbie that if Barbie had won Best Picture, you can only nominate 3 people to win the Oscar who actually get an Oscar. Only 3 producers can get an Oscar. And David Heyman would have been one of them. So his contributions were strong enough to Barbie that the Academy felt that if the film won Best Picture, he deserved an Oscar for it. So that's pretty good. And then he also did Gravity. Warner Brothers must be a little nervous. They're like, don't you go anywhere, David Heyman, because he's obviously producing a ton of films for them. Everything here but Paddington is for Warner Brothers. So they're like, don't leave us, David. So, and also because of his work on Harry Potter, David Heyman has a really good relationship with directors. Alfonso Cuarón did the 3rd Harry Potter film and then went on to do Gravity, which David Heyman continued to produce. So he's like a really great choice. By the way, they're both going to get paid tons of money, and I wouldn't be surprised if they both got points for this deal. Amazon's going to have to give them points. Now let's talk about Amy Pascal. I've never seen someone rise like a phoenix, like from being fired from Sony for those emails, like Amy Pascal, which just goes to show how important relationships are in the industry. That Amy Pascal, well, not the people she said bad stuff about in the emails. I don't think Angelina Jolie. Well, maybe now she might return her calls because Angelina Jolie's career is going very poorly. By the way, there is a character in the studio, the Seth Rogen show that I just mentioned, played by Catherine O'Hara. Where is that? Played by Catherine O'Hara, who's basically Amy Pascal, which is really funny. Okay, so Amy Pascal, and I gotta tell you, I don't think Amy Pascal is doing a bad job. I think Amy Pascal deserves credit for turning her career around. Now, yes, Amy Pascal, after she was fired from Sony, she had a nervous breakdown. And you can see that and reflected in her appearance. But that's okay. People have nervous breakdowns. You know, someday someone's going to make a movie about Amy Pascal, or maybe a comedy series like they made the current Running Point is about the Jamie Buss, you know, the daughter of Dr. Buss from Winning Time of the Lakers. I mean, I'm telling you, someday Amy Pascal is like really doing an amazing. What she's doing in Hollywood, I think, is really impressive. And I've said I want to see a successful female executive. There she is, and also here she is. She got $1 billion. Well, $500 million, but that's amazing. All right, so what has she done, Amy Pascal? So I'm sure they love the fact that she's behind a little franchise called Spider-Man. I mean, Kevin Feige's given her notes, but she has good ideas herself. And she's also, of course, obviously she's made those horrible Spider-Man-less movies, but the Spider-Verse movie comes from her. So she's done a nice job. She was the one who wanted Tom Holland. So she's pretty good. She's a good choice. So there's that. But then don't forget also Challengers. Very sexy movie. And I think she does a good job with women. You know, Greta Gerwig knows both of them. Greta Gerwig Bond movie? I don't think so. But I do think that, you know, you want someone who's going to maybe do something with the Bond female characters, Moneypenny, especially because they want to have a Moneypenny series potentially. And you want to have something that has cachet and is respected, enjoyed by women, but, you know, but still fits the brand. And I think, you know, and Amy Pascal has an amazing Rolodex. You know, look at the talent she can get. By the way, Josh O'Connor, if this deal goes through, the odds of him being Bond because he was in Challengers just got a lot stronger. He's like, yes, hire Amy Pascal. What's her number again? Let me go say hi to her. So, something else that's very important is that she was the head of the Sony studio when they distributed Skyfall, the only James Bond movie to make $1 billion. So she has actual hands-on experience with the brand. You know, all these things will make up for the fact that she's not British. You have one British person in David Heyman, and then you're going to have an American in Amy Pascal. But she shepherded, this came out 2 years before she was fired at Sony. She shepherded Skyfall to $1 billion release. So she has relationships with Bond, she has relationships with the cast, and she has relationships with Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. So that's very, very strong. I mean, this is really an impressive group. It might force me to take back some of the bad things I've said about Jeff Bezos. You're like, maybe this was worth $8 billion if this is what you're going to do with it. I mean, it's really, really impressive. So it's going to be both of them working together, and they would be the new Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. And they're both very prolific producers. And now the fact that they are already handling very large workloads, I think means that they don't have to only do James Bond projects. I think they're both going to be able to go forward, and they obviously have really impressive bandwidths. And so clearly, I mean, they might have to give up a few things, but I think you're going to see them still be able, you know, Amy Pascal's not leaving Spider-Man. David Heyman's not leaving Harry Potter. He's going to make another Wonka. And they're just going to add Bond to what they're already doing. And I think that's great. I think that's really, really great. I think that this is, I actually don't think you could get a stronger pairing. I think it's that good. I think it's that good. Now, the only way you would get this would be to give them points. But that's fine. I think it's fine to give them points. I would give them points. I think they're that strong a choice. I mean, I wouldn't give them like 10 points. I would give them like maybe 5 points each. But if they do their job, that's fine. What are points, Sophia? Points are out of 100. So 100% of, you can sometimes get off the gross or you can get off the net. Never accept off the net because there's never any net. Hollywood is famous for sketchy accounting. So you never ever want to go with that. But so it's always of the gross. And so you giving away 10% is substantial. But I get put your money where your mouth is. I'm a big fan of points. There was a story the other day about how Matt Damon turned down 10 points to be an Avatar because he didn't know the movie was going to be so successful, and he was in the middle of doing a Bourne film. So he turned down starring in Avatar and 10% of the gross, which is incredible. Although part of the story is that when James Cameron called him, he said, Avatar doesn't need a star, but I'd like you to be in it, so I'll give you 10%. And the fact that Jimmy Cameron knew that Avatar didn't need a star just shows how good he is as a filmmaker and a producer. I mean, wow. Jimmy Cameron is probably the only person in Hollywood who wears such a strong creative and business hat simultaneously. iReady says, I don't understand why there isn't a lot of interest in being a Hollywood executive or producer. There should be. My hope is, I hope I've contributed to some people wanting to be executives, but I think the studio will make a number of people want to go into that side of the business. I think it'll be impossible for you to watch the studio and not be like, I should apply for an internship at a Hollywood studio. They're cutthroat. It's a difficult business. And but I mean, it's a very fun business if you can make it in there. Let's see here. So any questions or comments about this story before we get to the Q&A? That's right, Madav. Never bet against Jimmy C. The guy's a genius, even though he's very famously a jackass. Zeke, oh yeah, that's right, Christopher Nolan. That's a good point. They don't even need Christopher Nolan with these two. In fact, I don't know if they could afford him. That's really interesting. They probably, I don't know. Like, it seems like we would be dreaming if they added Christopher Nolan to this. We'd be like, how did this happen? How did we get everything we ever wanted? I gotta tell you, I'd probably still want Nolan for two reasons. I would want Nolan because he's like, again, talk about assembling an infinity gauntlet. I really want Christopher Nolan to make this legit. I think and he really wants to do it. And then I really want Christopher Nolan to help cast James Bond. I think Christopher Nolan really understands the mindset of his fan base, which is the fan base that I would want for Bond. I mean, remember, the whole reason that Skyfall did well is that Sam Mendes copied the style of Christopher Nolan. Skyfall is a Christopher Nolan James Bond movie pretty much. So I would really want Christopher Nolan to help me cast James Bond. I think that would be really important. And that's right, Sarah. Christopher Nolan is absolutely awful at female characters, but hopefully Amy Pascal could help him out a little bit. Mr. Andrews, for those of you asking about Amy Pascal and Sony, she doesn't work at Sony. She has a deal at Sony. And she, in fact, while she still has a deal at Sony and she still does Spider-Man with them, her home currently is actually Universal. Sophia says, Grace, I'm heading into uni this year, and instead of studying film and going into business to hopefully be a producer. Oh, and I'm glad I helped you to inspire that. You should still take some film classes, Sophia, as a minor, if you can take them. I think that would help you getting an internship and any experience as a suit. But I would recommend minoring in some film classes, particularly film theory, so you can learn more about the business. Oh, Sophia, I'm glad that's what you're doing. And also, you should find some producing classes. When I was in film school, some of the most rewarding classes I took, the best classes I took were writing for film, the summer blockbuster, what a class, and then also my producing classes were very influential on me, as you can see, the way I turned out. So make sure you take a producing class. That's very important as well. But you want to know business, you want to know those things, team leadership, those elements. And also, it's never too early to start interning. You should be applying, especially if you're going to be, sounds like you're in the UK, you should call up Warner Brothers Leavesden Studios and be like, what's going on over there? Just start, but be careful, make sure you go in the direction where you want to work. There are a lot of production companies also. Oh, you're in Canada, Sophia. Oh, tons of production in Canada. But you can probably, I don't know how many production companies are in Canada. See if you can start Batman. I went to film school. I didn't go to regular college. I felt I got a strong enough education in high school, to be honest with you. I was ready for trade school. I wish that high school did a better job. I actually feel that what people learn in high school, side rant. What people learn in college, they really should be learning in high school. And I think everybody should go to trade school immediately. And I'm counting medical school, law school, journalism school. I feel those are all trade schools. I think that in fact, I considered going to journalism school. I talked to Columbia, and they told me that it was a better idea to go out into the real world first and then come back to go to business school, because this was right out of film school. And I was like, are you nuts? Once I leave the world of school, I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back. I'm out. I'm not coming back to school. But some people do, and actually some people are quite successful doing that, so I would never totally rule that out, but it wasn't for me. But yes, I feel very strongly that I really feel that four-year colleges are in large part not a good use of people's time, and they just put you in debt. I feel extremely strongly about this. If I were a politician, I would run on this. I feel people should go, and also, even though that's not really something you can do, you can go to undergraduate schools, and you can start minoring in these things, or doing what Sophia is doing. Sometimes some companies prefer graduate school experience. Like if you want to go into old school, we got onto such a tangent here. But if you want to go to if you want to be like a lawyer and stuff like that, or in business school, they prefer, even film school. The graduate school has more cachet than the undergraduate school. But I don't care. I didn't want to go to school for that long. I'd rather be out in the real world. And nothing beats being in the real world, by the way. The importance of school is learning what you're doing and having the resume to get the real world experience that you want. But real world experience is the most important, and connections. Somebody has to hire you. Somebody has to invest in you. Somebody has to believe in you. No matter what you want to do, it's going to have to involve some other people in some capacity. So, like, one of the reasons that this channel did well is that when I was starting out, I was actually the very first independent channel for Next New Networks. I was the first channel that was not owned by Next New Networks. Before then, every channel that Next New Networks produced was owned in-house. I was the first one who had a distribution deal with Next New Networks. And so that's how this channel got started. And that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't met people. I was all about being in the right place at the right time and meeting certain people and getting meetings. And that's how it happened. It's very important, very important. Jen says, Grace, I would love a Moneypenny spin-off series, primarily because of the beginning events of Skyfall, because I feel there's a good backstory there. I think that I would like a Moneypenny show as well if it was done well. And I think if I gave it to Amy Pascal, it maybe would be. So, very important. Thanks, Batmad. That's very kind of you to say. And I'm glad you guys appreciate this advice. And I'm glad that you listened to it. I hope that I can be helpful to you. That's right. It was Indie Mogul, Obed. Like, everyone who worked at Indie Mogul was an employee, but I was not an employee. Although when I started out, I was making $250 a week. I had to help myself, and I had already left my home and gotten my own apartment because I had been working somewhere else, and I had made more money. But I went out on my own, and so I went to making less I always tell people this story. I went from making I started to make less in a week than I did in a day. It was close, but it was less. And I was able to fund the early part of my career with comic book writing. That's how I made a living at the beginning. At first, I was losing substantial money. And I even had to pay a crew to do those interviews at the theater. Simi, I'm glad I could be an inspiration to you. That makes me feel very nice. Mr. Andrew S., I believe they want some kind of Bond spin-offs and streaming shows. They want to create a Bond cinematic universe. Reese says, Gary Oldman shared a story about Nolan recently in terms of how he gave such an impressive, concise note during the Batman era. Nolan told him during a scene, there's more at stake. Christopher Nolan, I'm not saying he doesn't know what he's doing. My only qualm with Christopher Nolan, my biggest problem with him. Also, I think he doesn't have, his films lack heart. But so did Oppenheimer. So that's why it didn't hurt him for that movie. But, he's really missing the warmth element to his movies. Although, obviously, he has a huge fan base and doesn't care. And then also, Art Lover, I wouldn't say he doesn't like women, but I think he doesn't understand women whatsoever. But I don't think most of his viewers do either, so they don't care. And it's never kept me from watching a Nolan movie. But I think as time has gone by, the fact that he hasn't improved in that area has really annoyed the hell out of me. I mean, remember, Batman has wonderful female characters, but you wouldn't know it based on the Nolan Batman movies. I'm just saying. Okay, Ramon says, hyper-focus on IP will be the death of Hollywood. I don't think so. People really like IP. And also, everything becomes IP. Severance is now IP. A beautiful, brilliant, unique idea. But now it's IP. Okay. It's like an angel getting its wings. Every time you hear a whole lot of clicks, an IP is born. Okay. Q&A time for 10 minutes. Boom, baby. Isaac says, I started my crochet stuffed animal business in 2018 and your story tells me to keep going. I'm passionate about what I do. That's a very interesting business that you've just started there, Isaac. Let me give you, so it's 144, I'm going to go to 154. Let me give you one more piece of advice, which is crucial that my parents had for me. My parents were extremely supportive of me. I lived at home way longer than most people, and my parents were never mean about it. Thank you, Ryan. I'm very fortunate that my parents supported me the way that they did. Although I don't take a dime from my parents anymore. I'm extremely... I pay for a lot of stuff with my parents these days. When we're going out to dinner, when we're going to a show, I pay for it. Because I don't want my parents to think that I hang out with them just because they might pay for something. I hang out with my parents because they're the coolest people I still know. So anyway, I snooted on it. It was so funny. All right. So anyway, a rule that my parents always had for me, and I keep this rule for myself, is that you only continue with something if you're showing progress. It doesn't have to be a lot of progress, but you have to be making some progress. If you're making some progress, keep going. Now, if you're not making any progress, you don't have to quit or throw yourself away. You have to pivot. Remember what I told you about the only good thing to come out of the movie, The Men Who Stare at Goats. If you feel like you're swimming upstream and you just can't move against the current, you're in the wrong stream. All you have to do is pivot to a different stream. And I think when you find the right stream, things will start to happen. Thank you, Cat Jack. You'll be really surprised. It's a really amazing feeling. I tried to do different things in the movie business before I settled on this, and I'm so happy. I love what I do for a living. And I still feel very much a part of Hollywood. There are so many jobs in the movie business. You don't have to be the one maybe that you first thought that you would. You have to be open to other opportunities. And you might end up being more successful and happier than you would have been in the original goal that you had. Don't be just so stuck and determined in what you want to do. And also, you might even find a different space that you are like, wow, this is so much more exciting than I thought it would be. And this is, nothing feels better than having a job that you enjoy, than doing something that you like and finding, having some feedback in it. Butting up against a wall isn't fun, no matter how much you might want to be in that industry. But if you find something where you do really well, you'll really love it. So so those are the two things. You have to be making progress. You have to be making some progress. When I was living at home, my mother said to me, you can stay here as long as you need to, but you have to show me progress. And I was like, thank you. And I would show her progress. I mean, it was slow, but I showed her progress. She could see that I was making steps forward. And eventually I did move out. Not far though. I always, every time I find an apartment, I'm like, I must be in walking distance to my parents' house. So anyway, that's important. But then if you're not making progress, pivot. Pivot, pivot, pivot. There is no shame in pivoting. Nothing's worse than wasting time. Christian says, dreams can evolve and change, and that is okay. I really agree with that. I think that's true. Like, it's funny. I never would have guessed when I was growing up that this is what I would do for a living. But when I look back at how I was growing up, this is exactly what I should have been doing. I see so many elements from my childhood and the way I acted in school that I'm like, my God, this was it, you know? So it's very interesting. Carrot says, hi, Grace, always curious. Why is the marketing budget the same as the budget of the movie? Why is this so expensive when everything is, well, not everybody's online. Some movies can just do online advertising, but when you have a really big film, it's important to make things seem like an event. That's how you get people to pay the money they need to go to the theater and not wait to streaming. And that's expensive. It's very expensive to do these things. Jesus says, hey, Grace, just want to thank you for always being a reliable. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jesus. And Nathan says, I am studying communications and journalism. Your videos encourage me and open the passion for the love of film. I'm also currently writing a book. I pray to make it in this industry. Oh, well, good luck, Nate. Break a leg, Nathan. And again, just keep making sure you're having progress. And then if not, pivot. You never know. You never know. Mika, my CinemaCon coverage will, obviously I'll be covering trailers. I'll probably maybe be doing, I have to see what exactly the announcements are. But I'll definitely be covering CinemaCon. I'm not going to go to CinemaCon. Again, I'm an independent creator and I have to pay my own way to CinemaCon. It's a lot of money to fly to CinemaCon and pay for a hotel room. So, so far I do not feel it's necessary to actually be there. I will be still covering it though. I'll still be covering on the stories. Hey, Danny, happy Friday. I'm glad that this advice is helpful to you. It makes me so happy to be able to pass it on. Elliot, I'm glad that I was able to inspire you, and I was very happy to see you reviewing Snow White. Elia, I haven't heard anything about Bill Burr's Broadway debut, but it's a hot ticket in town, and it's an amazing ticket. I've kind of reached the max on my theater budget, and also the tickets for Glengarry Glen Ross and Othello with Denzel and Jake Gyllenhaal, it's too expensive. I already bought my tickets to see Jonathan Groff. Jonathan Groff! It's like $1,000 a ticket to see these shows. They're like above $500 each. I think even medium seats to see these new shows is $750. That's too much. It's really a lot of money. It's hard for me to justify. You're starting to get to, if I want to go with I usually go with my family for that, it would be like a vacation, it's getting too much money. Isaac says, I'm progressing, but it's slow sometimes. I think it's time for a pivot. I'm supporting myself with my business, but I think I can do more. Isaac, the fact that you can support yourself with your business is impressive. That's very impressive. That's hard to do. So you should take great confidence in that. I don't know if you need to abandon your business, and I don't know if pivot is necessarily the right term. You might want to think of how you can add to your business. And by the way, I'm always brainstorming on this channel. Just this week, I was up at 2 a.m. being different ideas for videos and how to change the memberships. Very hard. You gotta never get too comfortable. I'm always a nervous wreck. I'm very competitive. Let's see here. Gerardo says, hey, Grace, I'm currently in Houston on my way. I didn't know what that abbreviation was. From Houston to Laredo, Texas to pick up some White Lotus merch as it's sold out everywhere else in the state. I hope you get it. I can't believe you're driving there and it's not on hold for you. Fingers crossed. You should call them and be like, dude, I am driving in a freaking car. Can you at least hold it for me till end of day? Let's see here. Heather, that's very nice of you to say that to Isaac. Hi, Heather. I haven't seen you in a while. That's right, Bat. I kind of did do a master class today. Isaac says, I sell at markets locally, so I guess move to online. Duh, Isaac! If you can support yourself just from markets, what do your crochet animals look like? My God, Isaac! You should definitely be online. Why aren't you on Etsy or Amazon and things like that? I think you're about to do very well, Isaac, if you can support yourself just from marketplaces. Sarah says, shouldn't some streaming services merge? Well, they are doing packages. Apparently the Disney Plus Max package is really popular. Ben 10, I'm not quite sure exactly when the trailers will drop in relation to the CinemaCon panel, but I'm going to, be ready. And it's in California time. CinemaCon is in Las Vegas. So these trailers sometimes they drop them earlier in the day and then they just show them at the presentation. But, it's going to be a big deal. Mr. Andrew S., I think Starship Troopers is a great idea to reboot it, but I worry if Neil Blomkamp will understand how important the cheese trash factor was to the original. The Fawns, I already gave you so many hints for the Wicked trailer when it's coming. You're going to get me in so much trouble. I can't say anything else. I'm sorry. Let's see here. Diego, I've sampled Adolescence, but I'm probably going to watch it tonight. Hey, Warren Peace, thank you for gifting a membership. Kenyel says, is acting the hardest job to break into the industry? It really is. It's very difficult, and even once you're a working actor, most of them can't support themselves off of acting. You'd be better off crocheting animals like Isaac. I think acting is a really exciting and wonderful dream, but I do feel very bad for some people who have not made enough progress. I think at a certain point you should have a good idea whether or not, look at people like Allison Janney and J.K. Simmons and see what they were doing at the same time that you're, working actors. Some people I think are too generous with the term. And then, if you want, I started out, to be honest, wanting to be an actor. It was just too hard a business to break into. You just can't wait on it. It's too hard and it's too dependent on luck. Did you get that casting call? Did the director and the producer like you? Pedro Pascal is a great example. Pedro Pascal, he really suffered. He could not support himself. Thank goodness for, I'm blanking on the name. Sarah, she doesn't work enough. Sarah Paulson. Thank God for Sarah Paulson, who was giving him her per diem, which is the money she gets to eat for the day. Sarah Paulson, you get about $60 to $100 a day, depending on how big a star you are for expenses. She was giving that to Pedro Pascal so he could eat. And he just stuck it out. But for every, I just want to warn you, for every Pedro Pascal, there's 1,000, not even just 100, 1,000 or more. Over 90% of SAG members can't support themselves. And it's a pretty high bar to even get into SAG. So it's really hard. It took Harrison Ford 10 years to book a gig and to become who he was. Pedro Pascal played chicken with life. He won, but not everybody's going to win. So if you want to be an actor, I certainly think you should try and pursue it, but I think that you should be open to other career paths in Hollywood, which are extremely exciting, still a part of the excitement and action. Watch the studio. I remember I was on a studio lot before the pandemic. I haven't been to LA since the pandemic. But I was on a studio lot eating. It was a small studio. They just did small TV productions. And I was with some people, and we were eating at the studio little cafeteria they had there on the lot. It was so great. And we were just sitting under an umbrella on the lot, and a guy went by on a bicycle who was just like a runner on the lot. And it was such a great life. I think studios are really wonderful little places to be in. And I think, there are just lots of ways that you can contribute and be a part of Hollywood. And so think about that. Oh, okay. I'm over for time. Thank you for joining me. I had a wonderful time on today's live stream. It ended up being very heartfelt. I think that it's probably more likely that my spoiler review for Snow White will go up tomorrow because we did this live stream. And I have some errands that I need to run. But movie math on Sunday, and then we're going to do the whole thing all again next week. And my studio review will go up before Wednesday, I promise. Okay? All right, I'll see you all very soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye-bye.